Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Horsepower Obsessed. Today, we're going to talk about the C8 Corvette and some of the dyno horsepower and torque numbers that are being reported. All right, guys. So yes, you heard correctly. There are some rumors building that there are leaked numbers being reported for the C8 Corvette. Now, before we actually get into the numbers, this is a rumor. So like I've said 100 times, you want to take any of these rumors with a grain of salt because it is possible these are not legit. It is possible someone's just making these up. But a lot of the numbers look legit because of the other rumors that are in place for this car. So I would say odds are very good these numbers are legit. But before we get into the numbers, let's talk about a couple different things. Number one, by now I'm sure you guys have all heard of the strike at GM. I did want to go over this information just in case there's those out there who don't know about it, but there has been a strike going at GM now for 3 days. Now, there is a chance this will affect the C8 build, but it's unlikely. Now, there's a couple reasons why this is unlikely to affect it, but the biggest one is the fact that the building process for the C8 Corvette doesn't even start until December. December is still about 2.5 months away, and it would be very unlikely that the strike would last that much longer. Now, with that said, it is, of course, possible it could last that long, or even more possible that GM decides to just cut its losses and move on with new employees, which honestly is probably the worst possible outcome for this situation because now you're dealing with a bunch of workers who don't know the process fully. And what this ends up meaning is possibly issues with build quality, which is what we all don't want to see. So hopefully GM is able to get this whole thing under control and get it all put together before the December deadline. Like I said, I'm not that concerned about it. I think it being 2.5 months away, GM will probably nail this down well beforehand. I'm just concerned with the fact that they could potentially cut their losses and move on with new employees, and I think that's the worst case scenario here. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on that for anybody who didn't know that situation before we get into the meat and potatoes of this upload. The next small piece of information that has been out there now for 2 or 3 days that I just wanted to discuss to make sure that you guys all knew about is the fact that Motor Trend is testing the 2020 Corvette Stingray, but more specifically, the launch control of the C8 Corvette. For the most part, the launch control in the C8 Corvette works the way you would imagine it would with an automatic transmission. You hold the brake down, you punch the gas, it goes to 3,500 RPMs, and you let off the brake and go. Nothing earth-shattering here, but it's definitely cool to see it in motion finally. The car is getting to the point now where it's being tested by third party, and we're getting to finally hear some of the features that are available for the car. Motor Trend actually gave us a video about it, and I'm going to put that in right here for you guys to watch. Definitely looks pretty cool. I think the car is going to be an amazing performer, and with the leaked dyno numbers here, I know it's going to be an amazing performer, so no worries there. But even more interesting than a launch control is the ability to do a burnout. For any of you who have ever been to a track before, you know that the burnout in the beginning is a fairly essential part to making a good run down the strip. GM obviously knows that as well because they have an official burnout mode, which is very easy to use according to Motor Trend. Basically, you put the car in drive, you stand on the brake pedal, pull both paddle shifters to temporarily open the clutches on the dual clutch transmission. Once you floor the throttle and release the pedals, the computer will do a controlled clutch dump and let the tires spin. When you're finished, you just let off the throttle and that's that. So it's pretty awesome to see that GM is really building this thing for the drag strip as well as the track. This thing looks like it's going to be a jack of all trades at the end of the day. There's actually a little video clip from Motor Trend here explaining in greater detail how to use that launch control and burnout mode. I'm going to go ahead and put that in right here for you.
All right, now the fun stuff. How do we use the launch control with this sweet new dual clutch transmission? Well, if you're used to Chevy products, you'll be real familiar with it. Grab the mode knob, twist it twice over to track mode, then double tap the stability control button to get yourself into performance traction management. Pick your mode, foot hard on the brake, other foot, floor the gas, lift off the brake, and you are gone. What's really cool is Chevy's also added a burnout mode now so you can warm up the tires. This time, foot on the brake, grab both paddles to open up the clutches, lower the gas, release the brake, release the clutches, you're getting a big old smoky burnout.
Last bit of tiny news before we get into the good stuff is the 2020 Corvette Stingray convertible could be starting production on February 10th. So for those of you who don't know, the car will be officially shown by GM on October 2nd, and the production will actually start on February 10th. This is pretty interesting considering the C8 Coupe is set to start production in December, and the convertible option is going to go in production on February, specifically February 10th. That's pretty interesting stuff because there's a good gap in between there just to pump out those first initial coupes. Then we're going to get into the convertibles. Now, like I've said before, this date has not been confirmed, but the production date for the coupe wasn't confirmed originally either, and it ended up being legit. So odds are good this is probably legit as well. All right, guys, so on to the good stuff, the meat and potatoes of this upload, and that's going to be the preliminary dyno numbers for the C8 Corvette. There's a rumor out there right now stating that the C8 Corvette is putting out 561.2 wheel horsepower at 5,400 RPM and 546 torque at 5,405 on a Mustang dyno. Now, I'm going to preface this with a couple different things, but number one, I have a feeling that these numbers are not for the base model, but these are in fact for the Z06 model. Obviously, GM has reported this car as having quote-unquote only 495 horsepower, so odds are very good it would not put out 561 on the dyno. Nowadays, it's not unrealistic that a manufacturer puts out dyno numbers that are actually lower than what the engine actually creates, but in this case, I don't think it's going to be 70 plus horsepower lower than what GM's giving us as an official number. I do, however, think it is very possible that that is the Z06 power output at the wheels, which would roughly give it about 600 or more at the crank. That sounds more realistic to me with a naturally aspirated engine, which has also been rumored out there for the Z06, using somewhere around a 5.2 to 5.5 liter flat plane crank, naturally aspirated engine, putting out about 600 horsepower. That number would be very realistic on the dyno if that car was creating around 600 horsepower. Of course, with any rumor, it doesn't get into a lot of detail. So we are being told that this is the C8 Corvette putting out the 561 horsepower on the dyno. They do not specify that it is possibly the Z06 or any other model. They're saying that it's just the C8 Corvette. Now, based on what we know about the Corvette, we have a pretty good feeling that the 561 is not going to be the base model. But in my opinion, I think we're looking at what the Z06 is probably going to do on the dyno. Either way, these are very impressive numbers. It's interesting to see that GM has already started putting these things on the dyno for someone to even leak this information. But like I said before, this is a rumor, so it's not necessarily anything that's 100% legit. All of the rumors that have leaked up until this point have been almost 100% accurate, so I'm very hesitant to discount this as any kind of troll or anything like that. I think these are definitely numbers coming from a C8 somewhere, and my guess is that is a Z06. Now, this rumor also goes on to say that the car apparently has a dyno mode that disables the front wheel speed sensors, and the car stayed cool throughout the entire dyno session. But anyway, if this information is to be believed, odds are very good it's coming from GM itself. It's very unlikely that anybody else would have their hands on a C8 Corvette already to see what the dyno numbers would be. This information has to be coming from within GM and being leaked out that way. That's the only possible way this would be a number for the Z06 C8 Corvette. The most interesting part to all of this is that the actual post that was made on the Corvette forum about this was deleted. The only way to find it was to dig through Google's search cache. And the last time that this happened, if you guys can remember, was whenever the option spec sheet was leaked from the dealership. It was the sheet that literally told us everything that the car was going to have option-wise, not prices, but just specifically the options that were going to be available for the new C8 Corvette. That was posted on the Corvette forum and then deleted like 2 minutes later. The only way to find it at that point was to dig through Google's search cache. But the fact that this thing was deleted in the exact same fashion tells me that the person who posted it was told this information from someone, and then that person made them delete it in order to make sure that their job wasn't in jeopardy. Like I said, it is a rumor, so there's not any guarantee that any of the information is accurate, but with the way that a lot of this information is being displayed, it kind of rings true to previous rumors that ended up coming out to be 100% accurate. So, like I said, I don't want to discount this. It's starting to look to me like we're going to see a C8 Z06 with around 600 to 620 horsepower at the crank. This is definitely interesting stuff because the Z06 in general has always been naturally aspirated up until the C7 generation. And if Chevrolet decides they want to continue that with the C8 Corvette, the numbers we're looking at here right now are very likely going to be the Z06 specs. A 5.2 to 5.5 liter flat plane crank could easily create around the 600, 620 horsepower number, and it does not necessarily have to be forced induction to hit those numbers. There were a couple rumors being kicked around originally that the flat plane crank engine in the Z06 was going to be twin turboed, but later discussed that the same engine from the Z06 being flat plane crank was going to be moved into the ZR1 or Zora body and then given the twin turbos to add even more horsepower. Like I said, all this stuff is up in the air, but it's all starting to look a little bit more accurate the more that we talk about it. But let me know down below, what do you guys think about these rumors? Do you think this is likely the Z06? Let me know down in the comments below what you think. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. So if you liked what you saw, give me a big thumbs up. If you have any questions about anything we talked about in this video, go ahead and shoot them in the comment section down below or shoot me an email, horse.power.obsessed@gmail.com. I'm always happy to hear from you. I'm always looking to engage in conversation about anything Corvette. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't yet, guys. I'm going to have loads of C7 and C8 content coming your way very soon that you're not going to want to miss. And as always, guys, I'll catch you in the next upload.